South Africa. Welcome to Afternoon Express. I'm Bonnie Mbuli.
And I'm Danilo Akristo, and welcome to the show today because it's the middle of the week and I know everyone's getting excited for the weekend. It's a very important week for us all as South Africans. Obviously, because on Monday we had Human Rights Day and also the build-up to Easter coming up this weekend. It's going to be massive celebrations all around the country. But like I said, it was Human Rights Day on Monday, and we're very excited to have an honorary guest in our loft with us today. This woman is phenomenal. She's ex-commissioner, a high commissioner for the UN on human rights. She'll be sharing some important information about her career as well as what exactly human rights means to us as South Africans today as we take stock of where we are in our country when it comes to fighting for basic human rights.
Yeah, we're also joined by a representative from the Anti-Racism Network of South Africa. They'll be telling us about their Take on Racism campaign. And we also talk about a human rights organization that's doing amazing work, and it's called Sonke Gender Justice. Really poignant discussions in the loft today.
Yeah, sure. It doesn't end there, though. Tomorrow is International Tuberculosis. We're all loco today. Tuberculosis Day, and we'll be sharing some more information about where we are in our country at the moment. And Dr. Pren Naidoo is in the loft with us today. She works for the Desmond Tutu TB Centre, so we'll be sharing some information about where we are when it comes to TB in our country. So I see I missed the denim theme today. Jeannie
My
as
denim
well.
twin.
It's not the denim theme, it's the jeans theme. Hi guys, so it's finally upon us. This is the week that we have to exercise all of our restraint. I mean, look how amazing this is. But today the loft really does remind me of my family home on that run up to Easter, because we are just cooking. We're baking, we're cooking, we're doing everything today.
And the smell of pickled fish is everywhere. It's crazy.
Okay, pickled fish.
In a wrap, Vietnamese style.
Oh, lovely.
Why not? We're going to try that out today.
Something just different, inspiring us for Easter.
Perfect for entertaining, and then to wrap it off, because I mean, we've got to have something sweet. It's got to be chocolate.
Give it to me.
It's an Easter egg loaded chocolate cake. It's more of like we're serving a side of chocolate cake with Easter eggs, because it's all about the Easter eggs.
It absolutely is. I mean, have a look at this. There's definitely going to be a little Easter party in this loft this weekend. Right now, though, let's cross over to the couch for our very first interview.
So as I mentioned earlier on, Monday was Human Rights Day, and it serves as a reminder of the sacrifices made by courageous South Africans in the past to secure our democratic freedom and also the rights we enjoy today. We're very honoured to be joined by Judge Navi Pillay, who served for many years as the UN Human Rights Commissioner, to discuss the importance and true meaning of human rights. So I'm going to call you either Judge, Doctor, High Commissioner. You've got so many titles. It's an honour to have you in the loft with us today.
Thank you very much, Daniel. I'm very pleased to be here.
Oh, it's so cool for me to be able to sit you down, because while I was in law school, I learned so much about the work that you had done. Let's first begin by your early career. The first non-white female to have a law practice and the first non-white female to be sitting in the High Court. What an amazing career.
Well, I started my own practice. I had no choice because nobody would offer me a job. I always said I'm trebly disadvantaged, race, class and colour. But also I wanted to work for myself. So that's almost 29 years law practice. And then President Mandela made me the first black woman High Court judge.
Sure. So a phenomenal experience for you at that time. I think it was high time in our country for this sort of change to be happening, and lots of excitement must have been in that process. But you never let that deter you. You were so focused on making sure that you really did bring human rights to people. What were some of the highlights for you? I mean, just to name a few, obviously getting involved in the writing of the Constitution in terms of the equality around race as well as gender and sexual orientation. I mean, that was a big one for you, as well as affording, in the 1970s, you helped all of the people like Nelson Mandela in prison afford rights to legal counsel.
Well, I wasn't his lawyer, but I did bring an application which for the very first time spelled out that prisoners have rights and that they have a right to a lawyer. So that's how he must have heard about me. And of course, when he called me on my telephone in my kitchen to say, it gives me great joy. And I thought, I mean, look at those words. He didn't say, I'm trying you out, do your best. But I was pretty nervous, I assure you, yeah. Because, so everything you enter that is new, none of us is qualified for those positions. I have said all over the world that South Africans grow up with an awareness of human rights because you see discrimination around you, even as a child. And you see injustice, and so you care about these issues.
You're very passionate about them, obviously, when you move towards doing your work for the UN. And we will talk a little bit later on in the show about the importance of human rights in our country and why it is that we're seeing so much discrimination so many years after our democracy. But globally, I think we're seeing a lot of change happening in the world. But let's first talk about your career and your shift from South African judge to the International Criminal Court. I mean, that was also a big part of your journey, helping out with the Rwanda trials.
Once again, it was South Africa's first nomination to the United Nations. We just got back in, and I was nominated and elected unanimously to be a judge on the Rwanda tribunal. As you know, this was to try the genocides that happened against the Tutsis, and I was very reluctant to leave South Africa. I went thinking I will resign after 1 year, but I was there for 8.5 years. Sure. Why? Because I thought, what am I complaining about when you hear how people have lost lives and they were subject to rape and sexual violence? Horrendous. Little babies were killed, you know, they were held, smashed against the wall. I went to the churches and saw the shape of the heads there. It's something that must never happen, but it happened there. And one of the reasons was that the radio station poured out this poison, that, you know, look at their small noses and break it. So the propaganda against the Tutsis, all of which provide lessons to us not to discriminate or stereotype people. Right here, the last thing I did was a 6 months investigation into the attacks by South Africans on foreign nationals. And we found it had a lot to do with competition for economic space and not xenophobia. But however, the stereotyping and prejudices that South Africans have against foreign nationals, that's racism.
Yeah.
So we have to continue addressing this. That's why human rights are relevant.
And you obviously moved up the ranks as you went, because I'm sure this must have affected you in so many ways, seeing genocide occur, seeing sort of the discrimination happening around the world. I mean, ex-High Commissioner, you were only moved from your post, I think, in 2015, last year. What was that journey like? Was it a decision specifically for you to say, I need to see change happen globally?
No, this is a highly competitive post. It's all the member states got together and created this one office, one person, to speak to the whole world on advancing the protection and promotion of human rights. And you can see how political that is. I didn't ask for it. I was interviewed, and I had to resign as a judge of the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Once again, I didn't apply for it, so why did I accept to do that? Yeah, you have a responsibility. And people looked at me and saw me as a South African. They said, you South Africans, you've experienced apartheid and you have integrity. So I had to uphold that as hard as the work was. You have to do that, and you have to try and spread the knowledge, work very closely with NGOs and civil societies, and make governments implement their promises.
And they don't like change. Governments don't like change. They like being told what to do. So it's a very difficult post, I think, to find yourself in. And I'm looking forward to chatting to you later on about where we are in South Africa with regards to human rights. I mean, you've had a global perspective. I want to see where we are as a country, so don't go anywhere. Guys, after the break, we're putting a unique Asian twist on traditional pickled fish in the kitchen, and we're back on the couch with Judge Navi Pillay. Don't go anywhere.
Experience the world in a way less limited. Apply today at dinersclub.co.za.
Welcome back to Afternoon Express. We're getting started off in the kitchen now with some amazing lunch ideas for your long Easter weekend that lies ahead. And we're going to be doing some Vietnam-inspired lunch. Now, this looks amazing. I must be honest, I'm completely addicted to these things.
Rice paper wraps are awesome.
They're amazing.
It takes some practice to understanding how they work and how to work with them. But once you get a hang of it, it's just amazing. Everything goes in a wrap.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
Well, actually, I've got a great story on why I'm so addicted to these things. And I actually came across for the first time in Vietnam. And I spent the day on a little boat on the Mekong River Delta. And we came across this amazing place. And there were just snakes and pythons everywhere. And the food that they were serving us looked a little bit dodgy. And then they served us this. And it was the only thing that I recognized. So I knew that I was safe eating these rice paper wraps. So this is basically what I lived on back in Nam.
And now you know how to work with them as well, right?
Exactly.
Awesome. So today, it's an introduction to people that maybe don't like pickled fish that much.
Okay.
This is a great way to get them hooked on it.
Yeah, this is my first intro to pickled fish, so you can use me as your little test
I love
bunny.
anything pickled. So, so what we're doing is this is great for entertaining, and it's also fun to get people involved and to get them making it themselves. So I've got one for you as well. So you can just grab some cucumber.
Yeah. How do you ribbon these things with a potato peeler?
That's all you need to do, just along the side. Actually, before you do that, maybe you should pop down some basil and some mint first. I think it's going to look better that way.
Great.
I'll do some cucumber.
And do you go the whole length of it?
Yeah, because we're going to roll it up like we would a sushi roll.
Okay.
So can you pause? Let me just grab one over here.
Yeah, just grab.
So we're using basil and mint, and if you think about it, basil's got a bit of an aniseedy flavour, which is in the pickled fish already, and mint just kind of livens the pickle a little bit more.
Yeah.
And it's all complementary flavours. And pickled, if you think about things like pickle cucumbers.
Definitely.
So it fits in really well.
Cheek gherkin. I'll do anything
my
for a
favourite.
gherkin in here now. It's my best.
So that looks like a really good. And if you like more herbs, go for more herbs.
Okay.
I'm going to go for more cucumber, even though I do not eat cucumber.
I don't believe you. I mean,
No,
have you
really.
tasted? When last did you taste it? I'm going to hold you down and shove some in your mouth, just because there's no reason for you not to like cucumbers.
It's just got such a strong flavour for me, and it just takes over everything.
Okay.
Okay, so
this is very herby and very cucumbery, but I think it's going to be good.
A spoon for you.
Yeah, pickled fish for me.
There you go.
Thank
and you
you.
just add it to the centre of your wrap. Actually, just not just off centre.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to do the first one, and then you just kind of bring it over.
I'm
Secure
layering
it nice and
onions
tight.
down there first.
Go for it. You're adding onions. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, that's really good.
So this is great for serving guests as a little canapé, because you can slice it up into smaller pieces.
Did you go the whole length?
Oh, well, kind of. And try to keep it more to the centre, because you're going to have to secure it.
Okay, how's that?
Perfect.
Done.
So that's my first one done. And there's no glamorous way. You just got to... The tighter you roll the wraps, the easier they'll slice.
Yeah.
So I didn't do such a brilliant job of rolling them really tight.
How did you do? What did you do? Fold?
Fold it over, now drop it, and then...
Okay, and now
secure
roll.
it. And there we go. Just keep on going.
They are quite slippery, so I think you're going to need to maybe have a hand
Once you get a hang of it, and once you start rolling more, you'll see that you'll become a pro at rolling them really tight.
Okay,
Can you handle it?
I can handle it, but like if I was at home, I'd maybe use a little a lappy. But when people are watching, I'm not going to use one now.
But it's fine. So
And
what
then
we're doing,
let me see
you can even cut it more straight if you want, maybe. Like, there we go.
Like there.
There.
Done.
And that's it. And that's our Vietnamese-style pickled fish wraps.
And that's a wrap. Well done, Clem. Okay, these definitely are going to taste better than what they look, but I agree with you, when they're a little bit drier. Okay, you can cook with us as well. All you need to do is visit our website, afternoonexpress.co.za, and this whole recipe and all of these amazing ingredients will be there. Right now, we're going back to the couch.
Indeed, we're back on the couch with Navi Pillay Justice. She's a former High Commissioner for Human Rights, and we're very excited to having a conversation now about human rights in our country at the moment, especially because, have you seen in so much of our media at the moment, there's been this high talk around racism and sexism and gender violence, and so it's an honour to have you back on the couch with us, Judge. Let's talk more about South Africa as a whole. Where are we when it comes to something like racism or gender violence in terms of the global community?
Well, there's racism across the world right now, very much in Europe. I've just been there, and the treatment of migrants from Syria and so on. They're not migrants, they're refugees. So there are levels of racism. people look at us because we had the support of the international community to end racism here, and they expect us to be very successful. Unfortunately, you cannot eliminate racism just over a 20-year period, but the law helps you and protects you if someone racially incites violence against you or discriminates against you on the ground of race. We have to do a lot more to implement that.
Yeah.
But we have a good system of laws and the Constitution. And what we say is we have our human rights now. What South Africans say is they don't see that in reality. It's not being implemented.
I mean, when I was doing my law studies, one of the things I found most frustrating was that we had this incredible system. Our constitution is elaborate. It's one of the best constitutions in the world when it comes to human rights. Yet to try and reach that, the person on the ground who is feeling like they're being assaulted, they don't know how to access the law around that. So it's high time that we speak about this. And obviously on Monday being Human Rights Day, what exactly are basic human rights nowadays?
You know, people have told me when I was High Commissioner for Human Rights that everything you say is common sense. So ordinary people don't have to be told what are human rights. These are rights-based, fundamental rights which every person is entitled to. There are civil and political rights, such as the right to vote, the right to be free from torture or arbitrary detention. But there are economic, social, and cultural rights. And all these rights are interdependent. So you can't exercise your right to freedom of speech if you are hungry. So poverty has to be addressed, unemployment has to be addressed, and you know, President Mandela signed all the UN conventions, but not the economic, social, and cultural rights. And this was only ratified late last year. And now it's the UN itself will scrutinize our government on how they're delivering on economic, social, and cultural rights, which are a priority for people in developing countries and for South Africans.
Sure. And obviously you just recently returned to the country and are busy at the moment at UCT with a whole bunch of discussions that are going on there. Especially with the student protests that are going on, it's clear that our country is hungry and excited to, you know, fight for these basic rights. What are those discussions that you're having, and sort of, is this something that's healthy for our country to move forward?
Well, freedom of protest is clearly allowed in our country, and that's why we're very disturbed when the law enforcement uses violence against protesters. I've seen all over the world that, you know, if you so much as send a blog or a Twitter, you get years and years in prison.
Sure.
There are many journalists and commentators like you in prison. So we have to value what we have here in 20 years. We have to preserve that. And the students have a very legitimate cause. They say, are you saying that because we're poor, we don't have the right to education? So this is a good question. It should have been addressed because we're not under colonialism or apartheid, where the system worked only to privilege the elite, the middle classes, and so on. Here, every South African has to benefit. And this is what the students are saying. Young people always alert us to changes that are needed.
Yeah. One of the biggest changes that I think really it breaks my heart every time I hear about is gender-based violence. And I'm really excited to have you here to maybe answer this question for me. But I find when we speak about human rights, we speak about it on such a philosophical level. Everyone has rights. But a lady who's sitting at home who's being assaulted by an uncle or a family member who feels like she doesn't have access to those rights is still being raped. What is it that we can do in our country to make sure that gender-based violence, racism is eradicated? And how long does it take? Or is it a leadership thing? Is it an interpersonal thing? How do we go about eradicating these ills?
So the people have a right to be free of violence. And women and children and young children should be protected from sexual violence. Unfortunately, we do have a very bad record in the world. And people constantly ask me why. You have good laws. You have people who understand about rights. It's true there's prosecution and punishment. It's slow. Very many rapes are not prosecuted. But that is addressing the situation after the event. You know, people don't want to be raped. Why are our children being sexually violated in this country? So there are many avenues in which this has to be addressed. We look to the government because the responsibility lies with them. But I think all of us need to look within our families, pick up the constitutional values and embrace them in your community, in your village or township. And I think we can educate us and say these are the values by which we are going to be living. And men should not tolerate friends who beat their wives or rape children.
Absolutely. We don't tolerate that at all on Afternoon Express. So I'm really glad that you mentioned that. And it's about having conversations with the people closest to you and educating your friends, your family, and making sure you stand up. It's going to take a lot of bravery, I think, in so many ways.
Yes.
Absolutely. I'm going to call you Judge, Doctor, as well as Human Rights Commissioner. I'm so glad to have you on the couch with us today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
South Africa, what a fascinating discussion. I hope you guys are going to continue having it at home, amongst your families, around the tables, as well as on social media. Let's engage with how we can best engage with our human rights. After the break, we're taking a look at the Anti-Racism Network of South Africa's new Take on Racism campaign. Stay right where you are. We'll be right back.
Express yourself.
Your next Magnum could be the one. Find a key with a unique code and stand a chance to win a shopping spree worth 100,000 Rand, plus designer fashion accessories by Gert-Johan Coetzee. Unlock the M Collection.
Express yourself.
Welcome back to Afternoon Express, live on SABC3. Now, in light of the flare-up of racism in South Africa recently, in the recent society over the last few months, the Anti-Racism Network of South Africa has launched a vision to create a South Africa free of racism and other forms of discrimination. They started by establishing a National Anti-Racism Week, which ran until Monday, and Afternoon Express was there for the Western Cape launch last week. Take a look.
ANSA was a response from civil society organizations to the occurrences that we've seen over the last number of years about racism and the responses that happens in society. And that's the whole objective, is to create an opportunity and a platform for South Africans to have the difficult conversation on the racism. And the idea is to make this as open and inclusive as possible. This is not a threat to anybody, but this is an honest attempt to say to South Africans, let's talk about this elephant in the room.
We have only really one choice, and that choice is to find a common ground, to work together and find ways and means that to break down the barriers that we have, to respect each other, and understand that we are all human beings, and all South Africans see South Africa as their home. And it's important that you find ways and means to provide the tools and the legislation and the socioeconomic conditions necessary for people to grow and reach their potential.
I think we're at a juncture in our history where the dream has faded. And the euphoria we experienced after 1994 is now, becoming dimmer and dimmer. And suddenly we are confronted by the realities. And then we start uttering things that might be hurtful or offensive to others.
And that is why this organization, the network, Anti-Racist Network of South Africa, is important, because it mobilizes and brings together organizations, and somehow they can articulate their voices and come with one voice as a partner, as an equal partner to the government and all the stakeholders on issues that have to do with our socioeconomic and political well-being. And it's fantastic that you're taking that step now in South Africa.
We're at a juncture where the public confidence in so many things in South Africa is so low. And as citizens of this country, we also have a responsibility to make sure that when we talk to each other, we do it out of respect, and we do it because we are all humans and we have dignity, and we need to protect that dignity.
I think it's very important, that the people who has been facilitating these types of initiatives, that we have the dialogue with them, with their knowledge and expertise that they shared with us, so that we can go out in the field and implement it further. Because fortunately for us, we are the youth, we communicate better with our peers, and the peers is responsible for the future of our country.
I am involved in some anti-racist work at the University of Cape Town through an organization called Disrupting Whiteness there. We try to create dialogue, we speak to people, we're active on social media, and we're naturally really interested in in other organizations that have similar goals. So we wanted to see what this organization was about and to see if there is any possibility for collective action.
As a young person who wants to change the outlook of South Africa and to create this truly democratic country, I feel that I need to be myself, need to be part of this network, but also seek ways on how we can help to drive this anti-racism so that ultimately this change can happen.
Very seldom do we have these opportunities, and I want to encourage every South African to use this, because it's important that government hears the voice of civil society. And if civil society come to the table, we wouldn't need to march every time there's a problem, so that we take this into our own hands. It's our document, and we need to embrace it.
We're joined by Shafiq Mouton from the Anti-Racism Network and Brilliant Nyambi, who's the youth coordinator at Africa Unite. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thanks for having us.
Lovely to have you with us.
Good afternoon.
So the campaign, why was it started and why is it so important, especially now?
Well, the discussion started early 2015. ANSA was launched in November 2015, late last year. It is convened by two icons of our country, Nelson Mandela and Ahmed Kathrada's, their foundations.
Right.
They are the conveners. And it involves civil society organizations, ordinary societies, your rugby club, your faith-based institutions, your churches, your mosques, your synagogues. So it's ordinary South Africans like myself. I've got no portfolio whatsoever, who has become involved and who has a voice now that can be heard to combat this evil that has for decades and generations been with us, unfortunately, in South Africa.
Yeah. Was the network convened as a response to the flare-ups that were kind of sporadically coming up all over the country? Is that it?
Well, I don't think it's just because of that, but there was a need to do something out of the ordinary for a while. I think we need to discuss racism as a collective and discuss it around our tables, around our braais, in our classes, around our water coolers, in our factories, in our offices.
Yeah.
And we need to talk about racism. Ordinary people need to talk about racism.
Yeah. How is the campaign being implemented?
Well, there's a pledge that you can take on the ANSA website, which is www.arnsa.org.za, where you can go on the website and there's a pledge where you and all the South Africans that has access to, which is most South Africans that has access to the internet, can go onto the website and take the pledge. And racism starts with the person you and me see in the mirror, with that very same person.
Right.
And you can do that on the ANSA website.
Is the goal to criminalize racism, and how far are we from that goal?
Well, that's a discussion on its own. It's easy for me to say that do this or do that, but it needs to go through the various channels that it should be, through Parliament, through all the channels that it should be. But there is a plan, NAP, a National Action Plan, which is in a draft at this moment. So there is a cut-off date, which I think is the 30th of June later this year, where ordinary people can make their voice heard on there.
Many people say that they hope to see racism eradicated through the generations that are coming to pass, and that the younger a person is, the less racism they're capable of or thinking. You work with a lot of young people, and is this true? Are you seeing less discriminatory thinking and patterns around young people?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I would like to say that often people that Africa has got the biggest resource, that is the minerals, but it's not true. The biggest resource that Africa has is young people, including South Africa itself, because we constitute almost 65 to 70% of the population. And often we are regarded as the born-free generation. And one of the things that we are privileged of having is education. But also, there is always a critique on the education. What kind of education? Is it quality or is quantity education? So, having seen that young people are a biggest asset in Africa, one thing that we need to realize is that if we tap into that asset, if young people understand, especially the fundamentals of human rights, that is respect and dignity, then we can be the first generation to eradicate all forms of discrimination.
Yeah, yeah. And what have you heard from young people? What are their hopes for the country? And how do you hope that this campaign will affect the way that they think?
Yeah, I think one most important thing also is that we can't homogenize young people. We have got young people that are privileged. We've got young people that are in middle classes also. We've got unemployed young people. So it's different to put them in one bracket and say, young people are saying this. But our concern and our work mostly is around young people, those that are less privileged. We also want to put young people in power. And they are mainly facing a lot of challenges, especially around socio-economic issues. And these socio-economic issues, they date back to the period of apartheid.
Yes.
So we are in a post-period of apartheid where a lot of issues are unresolved. That's why people are talking about social transformation nowadays. Main issues that are happening nowadays about social transformation.
Yeah.
And if you see who is leading the social transformation, mostly it's young people that are coming from those underprivileged backgrounds.
Right.
So you realize that the voices are different. We have got young people that are calling for a quick or radical change, and we have got young people that also are comfortable with the positions that they are. But the most important thing is to stimulate a dialogue. That's why ANSA is here. We want to stimulate a dialogue.
Yes.
Bring young people from all these different facets of life, from all walks of life, to say, let's discuss this issue. For a long time, I think racism has not been put on the plate for people to discuss.
Yeah.
It's something that has been discussed on social medias, people posting pictures, people saying this, and there has not been any clear discussions. So, like I said, if young people lead these discussions, 65% of the country, imagine if they understand that respect and dignity is the background of everything, then we achieve a lot.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, gentlemen. All the best with your work.
And thank you very much.
After the break, we're making an Easter egg-loaded chocolate cake, and we chat to a representative of the Sonke Gender Justice organization.
Unlock the M Collection.
Fresh Pack. Goodness comes naturally.
Welcome back. It's Afternoon Express on 3. Now, I've got a little confession to make, because in the beginning of the show, I did say that we're going to be baking, but Clem has decided to make the Jeannie D Easter cake, which involves absolutely no baking whatsoever.
And this is like the best
obsessed
challenge.
with you. You're a genius.
And you know, all the brilliance is, I was told, create 4 dishes over 2 days, strictly off Willie's shelving. And I'm like, please, I could do it in a blink of an eye.
Oh, gee, I could even do that.
So this is our Willie's Gatto, triple layer Gatto.
Yes.
And obviously it's got to be chocolate because it's Easter.
Absolutely.
And I just made a chocolate buttercream icing.
Yeah. Now, anybody that you obviously serve this to, you baked this.
You baked
alone.
this.
Okay, because now you're icing it, so it's all your own cooking.
So it's
and
got
baking.
a chocolate ganache on the top. We're just adding this because
Amazing.
we need a nest for our
Layers.
eggs. So we just spread it on. I mean, be as generous as you like.
Yes.
So what I'm going to ask you to do while I'm doing this is you can have a look.
Sure.
This is all I could get. I'm so sorry. It's all I could get.
Do you know, when I first looked at this bowl, I thought it looked like a little bit sad, because I thought, I mean, how do you offer this to somebody? It's like cookies and just been thrown in. But this is actually the topping.
It is.
Okay, so.
And you go crazy now. So my new favorite are these.
Ooh,
And I first thought
Stephanie shall go on top last.
Stephanie's amazing. These are chocolate half eggs, but they've got a short crust biscuit in there and caramel. So it's almost like a millennial shortbread in an egg.
Oh, shut the front door.
It's insane. It's addictive.
No.
It's insane. So I'm just going to start studying, and that's it.
Okay, and there's giant speckled eggs. They actually really have the jelly in them. Giant speckled eggs.
How crazy is
what
that?
What an amazing time to be alive.
So you go crazy. So I mean, how easy is this? Even our starter that we made, the pickled fish, we didn't make it. We bought it straight off the shelf. That was the Willie's pickled fish using hake.
Yes.
And it's just their crystal wrappers, and we just wrapped everything up together, and that's the starter done. So I'm going to let you do that so long.
Yeah,
I'm
leave
gonna
me. I'm wild.
Unwrap. Okay, actually, I got a few little ones here.
Okay.
And I'm going to start decorating the front, because we put it on a pretty board.
Okay.
And I know they're going to go flying everywhere, but that's crazy. I've got the short crust biscuits also in egg shapes.
I mean, this is just outstanding.
You
can actually get the kids to do this as well.
But why
It's
would you?
No, trust me, I wouldn't get the kids to do it. But you can at home to keep them busy. It's something quite fun and creative. But yeah, let's see if it makes it to Easter then in your
And good luck
household.
with the sugar high afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, so Stephanie has to go on the cake.
Oh, and these speckled eggs.
So let's put Stephanie on there. There we go. And I got a golden egg. Can we even fit it on there?
Well, you are the goose that laid the golden egg after coming up with this little invention.
That looks crazy.
There you go. Okay, let's see if it looks convincing. Happy Easter, everybody. I baked this myself. I doubt it. But for all of our recipes and, of course, the shopping list, all you need to do is visit afternoonexpress.co.za. Right now, Bonnie's on the couch with our next guest.
Sonke Gender Justice is a non-biased, non-profit organization established in 2006 with the aim to create the change necessary for men, women, and people of all ages to enjoy equal, healthy, and happy relationships that contribute to the development of just and democratic society. Joining us from Sonke is Marlies Richter. Welcome to the Loft, Marlies.
Thank you, Bunny.
Awesome. So what kind of work does Sonke do, and why did it come about? Why the need?
So Sonke is a human rights organization that focuses on the prevention of HIV, the elimination of gender-based violence, and promoting gender equality. We work from offices in Cape Town, Gugulethu, Diepsloot, Bromfontein, and Bushbuck Ridge. And a large focus of our work is community mobilization and education around violent masculinities. We do advocacy on human rights related issues, and we work with the media and forge strategic partnerships across the region to promote human rights.
Now, you protect the human rights of all people, and even the civil rights of people. And recently, Sonke was very vocal on the raid attacks that took place at the Helen Suzman Foundation. Can you just talk about that?
So human rights, as the judge had noted a bit earlier, includes a range of civil, political, and socio-economic rights. That the raid on the Helen Suzman Foundation a few days after they launched a court application surrounding the Hawks, we find very suspicious and disturbing for a raid to happen at their offices and some of the equipment taken, including some of their sensitive data. We are very disconcerted by, and we're looking forward to the results of the investigation that's being launched into that.
That's great. Now, Human Rights Day particularly highlights the protection of the rights of marginalized groups. Who are some of the marginalized groups that you work with?
I think a test case for human rights in any country is how well it treats its particularly marginalized and underserved populations. At Sonke, we focus on the rights of prison inmates specifically, looking at the issues of overcrowding, at the provision of adequate sleeping and living conditions of inmates, and focusing on the prevention of sexual assault in correctional facilities.
Right.
We have a sex worker human rights project that advocates for the urgent reform of law in the form of decriminalisation of sex work, because we believe that sex workers are experiencing a large number of human rights violations because of the criminal law. And then our refugee health and rights project looks at the manifestations of xenophobic violence, as well as assisting migrant communities with accessing their rights to social services and health.
And why is it important to highlight and protect the rights of sex workers and prisoners? Because people often say, but they don't deserve their rights to be protected. They've taken away other people's rights, and they've chosen to oust themselves from society and live the way that they do. And what would you say to that?
Bonnie, I think that's a very important question. And if we look at our constitution, that is widely renowned and respected across the world for the principles and the rights that it contains, it's very clear that everyone in South Africa is entitled to a basic package of rights. And whether you're a sex worker, whether you're a cross-border migrant, whether you're someone from the lesbian, gay or transgender community, whether you're in a prison facility, it doesn't matter. You're entitled to the same basic right to dignity, human rights, and to be free from non-discrimination.
Yes. And do you think more work needs to be done to communicate to those particular people that if your rights are being violated, you have every right to try and protect yourself, and this is who you can contact, and these are the channels that are available to you?
I think it's a two-pronged approach, is to work with the affected communities, and part of our work is to educate and empower communities to use the mechanisms available through the Equality Courts, the Human Rights Commission, the Gender Commission, to enforce their rights.
Yes.
But it's also important to work with the people who hold discriminatory views towards marginalised communities and the general society to really press upon them that that human rights need to be respected.
And to not be silent about it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And anybody watching who's thinking to themselves, I've got an issue right now where I feel like my rights are grossly being violated and I don't have the money to protect myself because people think that it takes a lot of money to fight for their rights. What would you say to them and who can they contact? Can they contact your organisation?
They can. I think there are a number of mechanisms that have been set up in South Africa, such as the equality courts, where every magistrate court in a district can act as an equality court and take up cases of discrimination specifically. I think the South African Human Rights Commission provide free support to people whose rights have been violated. And we have the Legal Aid Board and the Gender Commission, as well a range of NGOs who can assist.
Right, that's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Bonnie.
After the break, we're joined by Dr. Pren Naidoo from the Desmond Tutu TB Centre to learn more about the disease and how we can prevent it. We'll be right back. Stay right where you are.
Another delicious recipe brought to you by Salati Sugar. Always good, always sweet.
Five Roses blends only the top 2 leaves of the finest Ceylon teas. Because nobody makes better tea than you and Five Roses.
Welcome back to Afternoon Express. Now, we've discussed some very pertinent issues, but tomorrow is International Tuberculosis Day. Tuberculosis is a major medical issue worldwide, and in South Africa, TB is the second biggest killer after HIV and AIDS. We also have one of the highest infection rates in the world. What makes it so dangerous? When TB is active, it is incredibly contagious and can be passed on by something as simple as a cough on the bus. So we're joined by Dr. Pren Naidoo from the Desmond Tutu TB Centre in Stellenbosch to explain more about this disease. So, Pren, let's talk more about TB itself. What exactly is it?
TB is an infectious disease. It's caused by a bacteria, a germ in other words. And you acquire this bacteria by breathing it in.
Okay.
So unfortunately what happens is somebody who has TB is coughing, as you say, or singing or laughing or talking, and they spread the germ into the air in tiny, tiny micro droplets that you can't see. And those droplets stay airborne for up to 5 hours. So somebody's been coughing in a space, a room or a taxi, and you go into that space, that person's not there, but the infectious droplets are still there and you can breathe them in.
Sure, so it's almost quite difficult to be able to prevent yourself from being exposed to the disease because you never know where it would be. But, you know, we've heard the conversation about TB being such a great killer in our country. Has it increased or decreased over the last couple of years?
Well, at the moment, we think we have about 380,000 cases.
Sure.
We're not 100% sure. We know that we have 320,000 on treatment approximately in 2014. So that means that about 80% of those who have TB are on treatment, but it could be much higher than that. This year, the Department of Health is planning a prevalence survey, so we'll get a much better understanding. So it's a huge problem. Those of us working in TB have the sense that we are getting on top of it and it is slowly declining. But we should remember that our rates are over double what other African countries have. So it's still a massive, massive problem.
So how do we know if we've contracted TB or if we know if somebody has showing the telltale signs of TB?
So TB most commonly affects the lungs. And typically a person who has TB will start coughing. Other symptoms include things like sweating at night. People report that they have to change their bedclothes because they...
So it's excessive sweating at night,
It's not just getting a little bit hot and bothered. And losing weight without trying to, and fever. Those are the classical symptoms. You should remember, though, that TB can affect any part of the body. So it can affect the lining of the brain, the meninges, it can affect the liver, the gut, bones, the spine.
But it's so
strange.
It
commonly occurs
in the lungs. But it's so strange to hear because something like a cough is so common. Moving into the winter season, everybody's coughing.
Well, that's exactly what makes it so difficult to deal with, because people ignore the cough. They, you know, often one's examining a patient and they say, you ask them, do you have a cough? And they say no, and then they start coughing. Because it's, you know, it's my normal cough.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that people don't seek care early for that cough that results in ongoing transmission. Somebody who's coughing up TB germs in a year can infect 15 to 20 people.
Sure. Wow.
So unless we actually are able to identify who that is coughing has TB and make sure they get onto treatment early, we won't be able to break the transmission.
Okay. So cough is not something you have to ignore the minute, because it could come from anywhere. You could have entered a space where maybe you'd think your family doesn't have TB, but somebody else who entered that space might have. What are the sort of treatments we should be seeking?
Well, if you have a cough for more than 2 weeks, don't think it's a normal cough or don't attribute it to anything else. The first thing in this country you should be thinking about is TB.
Yeah.
And we have really sophisticated new tests to diagnose TB now that are available. We're one of the few countries that has these tests that are available at every primary healthcare clinic, free of charge. So you need to go to your local clinic and tell the nurse about your symptoms. And if she doesn't offer you a test, actually request a test.
Yeah.
Tell her that you're worried you've got TB and you want to have a test.
What effect, because TB is terminal. I mean, there's some real dire circumstances you can find yourself in if infected with TB. Obviously, you mentioned the fact that there are other treatment methods.
Well, so once you've been diagnosed with TB, then actually it's curable.
You're okay.
So you have to be on 6 months of treatment, which is a long time, and that's one of the second reasons why we find it difficult to bring TB under control, because it's difficult to take medication for that long. And people who have TB need a lot of support from their family and friends and encouragement to ensure that they complete their TB treatment.
So how long will it take for you to be infected with TB without taking the medication to pass away?
If you don't take medication, you're quite likely to die from TB.
Sure.
So in some instances, it can cure itself. But essentially what we're wanting to do is we're wanting to break the transmission of TB. And the only way to do that is to ensure that people are diagnosed early, that they get onto treatment, and that they stay on treatment for the full 6 months.
Is there a way for us to minimize the chance of us being infected by TB? I don't know, we would have seen in the sort of Asian countries, the sort of face masks from the smog, etc. Are there sort of immune defenses we can take? Is there a way that we can help prevent that spread?
Yeah, sure there are. So the best way to prevent spread is to make sure that people who are coughing are on treatment. But if you are coughing, you should be conscious of the fact that you could be transmitting, if not TB, some other germ. So the typical face mask that you see Asians wearing doesn't prevent you inhaling germs, but it certainly prevents you transmitting them. And then simple things like keep your windows open. Because obviously if your windows are open, you're diluting the air and you're dispersing those micro droplets.
Doctor, I must interrupt you there because I know that could talk for hours about this topic, and I think it's such a big one, and I hope people at home are going to continue this discussion at home. Over to the ladies at the table.
Thank you so much, Dindalo. Today's been an amazing day, and we'd love to thank you for coming through. It's been amazing. But until tomorrow, we'll see you. Good afternoon and happy eating. Ciao. I recommend you all...
Afternoon Express will be off air on Friday the 25th and Monday the 28th of March due to the cricket, but we will be back on your screens on Tuesday the 29th with 2 exclusive performances from the King of African Rap himself, Questa, along with 3-time 2016 Metro FM award winner Fifi Cooper.
Another feel-good production.
Hi YouTubers, thank you so much for watching. Your support means the world to us. Join the Afternoon Express family by subscribing to our channel right here. And we'll keep you up to date with all our recipes and of course our fabulous episodes. Also, feel free to leave a comment and share this video. We do love it when you express yourself.